anybody that couldn't make it, then they're able to listen to the recording and our resource for tonight. But welcome everyone. Thank you again so much for being a part of our community resource night. If this is your first time here, with us in the community resource night, I do want to let you know that we do meet every fourth Wednesday of the month from 6:30 to 8. And these meetings are designed to connect with representatives from mental health resources in Santa Cruz County. And these virtual events are a safe space for parents and caregivers to learn about resources that support youth and families affected by mental health conditions. Also connect you with representatives such as Anthony from Embark, get information and ask questions. I do also want to mention that NAMI of Santa Cruz County, we do have support groups for parents or caregivers of youth. If you are interested, please click on the link that I will post in the chat for more information and to register. Rude of me, I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Cecilia, but I go by Cici, and I am a programs manager here for NAMI of Santa Cruz County. I will also put in my information in the chat in case you have any questions or you want to contact me for anything. But before I present our guest speaker, I would like to announce that if you have questions, please use the chat box or just raise your hand, or if you're able to use the raise hand feature, please do use, and then Anthony or I will call on you. And I do want to introduce our wonderful speaker tonight. Anthony Gracia works as a director of clinical partnerships at Embark Behavioral Health. He has dedicated his last 12 years of his life serving those suffering from behavioral health issues and is very passionate about talking with families about behavioral health treatment. Anthony believes healing and transcending stigma is a human right and one of the next human frontiers. I do want to present to you Anthony Gracia. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Cece. I'm very honored to be here. I have known about NAMI for years and the great work that it's done, and just really proud to be a part of the community and to be able to kind of talk about treatment in general. I am with Embark, but for me, I see myself as somebody who is a guide, a navigator to treatment in general. Embark mostly works with adolescents and young adults, so there will be pertinent information about that. But in general, whether it be substance abuse, eating disorder, adults, older adults, adolescents, young adults, it doesn't matter who. Behavioral health is a human right, and I absolutely see it that way. So I just want to just say all that to kind of set the stage. So I wanted to go in a little bit about me before I start talking about Embark. I have a very personal connection to behavioral health insofar that my own mother is somebody who has definitely been affected by mental health symptoms over the course of her life. And that definitely, of course, has impacted me as her son and somebody who is in close, of course, relationship, because she's my mom after all. So for me, when I'm talking to people on the phone, I come from the standpoint that, when my mom was suffering, I think about that. And, things were really chaotic when I was like a teenager, young adult myself. I think about my experience and I kind of lead from there. That's kind of informs my work and the things that I do. It really, truthfully, I think if I can help a family member, well, then it's like helping myself in a lot of ways, kind of heal from that experience and kind of pay it forward in a way. So actually, I have a picture of myself with my mom when I was a baby. I don't know if you could see it, but there she is. And it's kind of the filters kind of thing, but there we are. And this is kind of before the symptoms that she had. You know, she pretty much raised me all the way up into a teenager without significant issues impacting us. However, I think over time, the trauma that she experienced, you know, someone who was unfortunately battered as a woman and experienced domestic violence and just a slew of all these different other things, it you know, eventually it caught up to her and where she actually needed psychiatric and mental health care and all of those things. So I just also want to set the stage with that because this is what I'm bringing into my work. And when I'm talking about treatment, once again, this is for, there's a very personal connection, as I said. So, you know, as CC introduced me, you know, I've been working for the last 12 years in behavioral health. I was a program director for in San Mateo County for a residential for serious mental illness. So I was able to do that, and it was a great experience because I got to learn a lot more about SMI and you know what that means, and kind of like provide some depth and breadth to what I do. Um, you know, and it kind of helped me when I moved over to the private sector, which it is. Embark is a private sector type of behavioral health company. It gave me the tools to go out there and be more than a salesperson. My role, after all, is business development. My goal is to get people into treatment and Embark. However, because of my experience working in a program like that, and because of you know this personal connection I have with my mother, it's given me an advantage um, in the field because I can speak from the heart, and also I can speak clinically. And you know, once again, it kind of informs my work and what I do. So I say all that to you know to again to affirm the idea that although I represent Embark, it's really treatment in general that I'm representing. I have no problem talking to somebody on a phone, whether it be a family member or an individual themselves, and really evaluating them to find what works for them, whether they be Medi-Cal to you know cash pay. It doesn't really matter. I just kind of see them as somebody who needs treatment, which once again I see to be a human right. So all you know all that being said, I kind of want to go into talking about and presenting about treatment in general. I'm going to talk about Embark as well, but really what I wanted to talk about today and kind of give some food to thought for the people here on the call is talking about things to look for when looking for quality treatment. I think the most important thing that needs to be recognized is that the troubled teen industry, as it called, um, is a very dogmatic, problematic type of industry. Yes, they're here to help people, but also there's a lot of things in the news lately, a lot of things that are coming out about these wilderness programs, you know, or teen treatment programs in Utah or Florida or you know the places that are elsewhere that is extremely unsavory. And as somebody who's, you know, trying to get people into treatment and talking about that, I like to talk about that in a very transparent and forward, kind of forward thinking way, in a way that we can have like dialogue about that that's honest and that, you know, we're really looking at ourselves to talk about those type of things. Um, so what I wanted to do is actually present on a competitor, I quote, actually Newport Healthcare. I'm good friends with the rep. Her name's Laurel, and her company actually put out a article recently, which I really liked it. It came to me in an email. You know, sometimes, you know, because they have my email, I get these kind of like mass emails, email blasts, if you will, with their articles. But I was really liked it because it kind of broke down for me like you know 10 things to look for when looking for treatment. Embark does the same thing. Um, you know, another local partner is Evolve Treatment with my friend Jamil A as well. Another one is a Mission for Michael. They happen to be in Southern California. You know, and they do, and these are all residential treatments. I'm not even talking about outpatient. This is when things are really bad, you know, in terms of like, you know, they're not going to school, maybe there's self-harm involved, suicidality, you know, significant symptoms impacting daily functioning type of deal. So I wanted to kind of give this to everybody because this is in the news, and you know, it's something that with the likes of Paris Hilton, I'd have never thought that this person would there is something I think about 20 years ago when she was on MTV or whatever it was, and she's kind of the silly goofy person or whatever there, but she was somebody who went to a troubled teen facility. And I think that her work has been incredibly powerful and impactful because although she was like this kind of like a silly person on TV 20 years ago, she's somebody who has stepped forward and led with her own heart to talk about those things and have really popularized and has actually shut down or made these programs revolutionize the way that they are providing care, because the fact of the matter is that not all of these programs are created equal, and not all the people that run the programs are in for the right reasons. So actually, I wanted to start with sharing this Newport article that I found, and it's kind of going over 10 things to look for in treatment, kind of markers of quality, if you will. But before I proceed, if there's any questions about if anything I've said, I would like to field those questions, and then I'll go ahead and continue forth with with more of the presentation. Lucinda, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, and you might have already said this, but we are talking about age group. What exact age groups are we talking about in terms of your facility?
Yeah. So all of this pertaining information I'm getting ready to go in is 12 to 17,
Okay.
which is categorized as like adolescent,
Uh-huh.
that age group. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait, a 12-year-old with a 17-year-old in treatment? That can be concerning. And what a lot of the programs do, including Embark, is that we're mindful of those things. So they usually have two separate cohorts, and they really kind of evaluate people based on their like through a developmental lens. Because maybe you have a 14-year-old that's a little bit more mature, and maybe they can kind of handle that type of thing. But we really, really kind of like take that into mind, everybody in treatment, to kind of really assess like what's appropriate. How do we make sure that we're, that this is appropriate? I see Ariel raising their hand. Ariel, go on ahead.
Hi there, Anthony. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Um, before deciding to attend tonight, I did look online at Embark to make sure that it was covering the age group that I'm interested in learning about,
Yes.
because in my role with NAMI, I am co-facilitating groups for 18 and older. So I saw that on the different facilities, they do provide care up to 28 years of age, I thought I saw.
We do.
So, okay. So, and I think you have a facility in Campbell, is that correct?
We do. Yeah, we have an outpatient IOP PHP level of
Yeah.
care, and to kind of like briefly kind of define those things in terms of structure, what that looks like. The PHP is for 5 hours a day for 5 days a week, with an hour dedicated to academics, meaning that our team works very closely with the schools and the parents to kind of determine what that looks like. And even during the summer, right now, the adolescents at the PHP level of care, they have an academic hour still, and that's assigned by the academic case manager, and it's to kind of keep those academic skills sharp. And it's more casual during the summer, like they're not giving them 15-page essays or anything like that, but it's something to do, and it's a good time for them to kind of get a break from kind of the heavier kind of behavioral health type of work programming. And then we have an IOP as well for adolescents at Campbell, and that's actually 4 days a week, 3 hours a day, so less structure than the PHP. And I have to, and I certainly have to say as well that family therapy is required in those programs, not an option. Embark believes, and I'll go over this more in a second when I present specifically about Embark, and how family is definitely something that we totally look at in terms of the dynamic and the things that are going on with the teen or the young adult. And we want to incorporate that, because the thinking is that if they're living at home and they're interacting with the family, everybody's going to need to heal to get to attunement, to eventually to get to creating joy, right? We want to co-regulate together as a family unit and really kind of break those things down and have them heal together, essentially. So
Well, that sounds really great. So, but I guess to be more specific in my question, does the Campbell facility offer those programs for 18 and older?
yes. So
Okay.
there's an
Okay.
IOP program too,
Okay.
for 18 to 28. There is talk of putting a PHP, because right now our young adult IOP program is it's fairly new, just started at the beginning of the year, and it's bustling. And what I mean by that, it's completely full. We have a bit of a wait list. There seems to be people with higher acuity, so we're referring out sometimes these clients. There's a need there. And I think it's because summer and a lot of these young adults are, of course, taking breaks from school at the moment. So, during the summer, it's kind of the young adult and adolescent kind of mirror each other, and they're like their capacity. Typically adolescent programs tend to go down during the summer in terms of capacity, or in terms of like census, I should say, and young adult goes up, because of school. That it's simply kind of like the driver of those things. So yes, we do have that. And then we also have a virtual programming as well for young adults, including an OCD track that does ERP virtually. Now that's that needs to be a certain type of client. It couldn't be somebody with severe OCD necessarily, maybe more moderate, maybe there's some other issues at play, but we do offer that as well for young adults, Ariel. So yeah. Other questions? Did someone else raise their hand? Cameron.
Yeah, I know COPD and OPD, but some of the acronyms you used, I wasn't familiar with. When you're talking about specific facilities, you name them with just the initials. Could you tell us what those initials are?
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, Cameron. I'll try to avoid alphabet soup from now on, and kind of, if I'm going to use acronyms, really kind of break that down. So thank you for bringing that up. So to start, PHP stands for Partial Hospitalization Program. So because of the intensity, it's really kind of considered like an outpatient hospitalization because of the structure of the programming. And then from there, and a lot of the young adults and adolescents that we get step down eventually too. So the next step down from that would be intensive outpatient. So that's really important to remember, and then the next step after that, just to kind of provide and kind of taking a look at the continuum, would be a referral out to like a therapist or a psychologist. And maybe they have a psychiatrist as well that's kind of managing those things. But the hope is by the time they get there, they have a toolbox of skills, and really the dynamics and the interpersonal dynamics of the family have been worked on as well, because medications absolutely do help in that, but I mean, not without the skills too. So yeah, that's kind of how that looks.
Thanks.
Other questions before I proceed?
Case management.
Case management, we do a bit of that. That's the therapists do that a little bit. I do that a bit. Everybody kind of takes hand in like case management in terms of like linkage or helping kind of like organize certain thing. It's not intensive case management, but we do connect people to resources. My role is heavily involved in that. My team relies on me to come up with resources for people in terms of like behavioral health. But it's not intensive case management. It's not like a wraparound case management necessarily, that I know that some of the county programs like offer that more, whether it be like a FSP, which means full service partnership, or there's other like wraparound services. So we're kind of a little bit lighter than that, but typically, they already have doctors in place, or parents kind of help case manage as well by sheer parenting too. So not something we completely offer, but everybody takes part in like case management for the client when they're with Embark. Other questions? Jill,
I haven't figured out how to raise my hand electronically yet.
that's okay.
Um, any capacity or programs for people who are somewhat neurodiverse, but also having mental health struggles like anxiety? Because those two things do overlap, but I often find that the care you can find is very siloed. You're either
Sure.
anxiety or you have neurodiversity, as if the two could never meet in the same brain.
Right, right. And that is a huge concern because the services offered seem to like not even be compatible for each other and you know sometimes and at Embark, you know, we recently over the last quarter of however have had a lot of ASD young adults or adolescents recently, and often, you know, as long as that's not like the chief thing, like maybe it's something that's kind of going on and maybe it's kind of creating situations where, you know, the social skills are need some work and maybe they're kind of coming, you know, they're kind of misunderstood by peers or like by, you know, other people in their life. And maybe it's more like anxiety or depression or are the kind of things that they're dealing with. um you know, Embark could work with that type of client. It just kind of depends on the the type of you know, what does it look like clinically, the clinical presentation, essentially, are they appropriate? Because we can definitely you know, take a look at that and see what that, you know, what that might be. And if not, we can kind of make a referral to some of our partners in the community. I saw that there was a question from Ariel about what ASP was, and I think I need to work on my pronunciation, but it's ASD, I believe, called, which would be basically no autism spectrum, like it's basically autism on the spectrum type of deal. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. But Jill, does that answer your question about that?
Yeah, it does, and I was really you hit it. I was trying to refer for somebody who's, you know, not so far on the spectrum or so neurodiverse that they couldn't fit in, but at the same time, there's some learnings that how anxiety looks for somebody whose brain is on ASD or ADHD or whatever is a little bit different.
Yep.
And it's so important for them to have real peers. Otherwise, it's just one more opportunity where they feel like they don't quite fit in, because someone having and I'm just picking something randomly, test anxiety or, you know, some other type of social anxiety might be different than someone's who's having social anxiety in a neurodiverse brain, right? And so they try to mask, right, and fit in, and they know they're not quite fitting in still. And here's another place where they're not quite fitting in still. So if you have other resources for that, or if it's something like I could contact you offline for, I know that's just a
Yeah.
big empty hole trying to find that information.
Yeah, I mean, in you know, in Fort Embark, and I think a lot of the kind of the local organizations that work with adolescents work with that too, because we realize this is there's people that need help in that particular type of population. It's often, you know, because you have other people with that diagnosis, they get to really practice in community those skills. And you know, I was at the clinic today, and I could just see, you know, the relationships budding. And you know, I just so happened to know these people's diagnosis. You know, of course that's not how I'm looking at them, but I know what they're going through, and I see them interacting and holding each other accountable and kind of like, hey, like, you know, holding boundaries with each other and all those type of things. And you know, like, hey, that wasn't appropriate or what have you. And it's really kind of a good way to kind of learn and kind of put some and kind of make things a little bit normal for them, you know, because of the community there. So yeah, but I'm willing to kind of talk, you know, talk offline. I'll leave my information at some point in the chat here, you know. And then once again, I'm available as a resource in general, but would love to talk about that and provide more resources and kind of go into more detail what we do about Embark with that particular diagnoses. So
Awesome. Thank you very much.
yeah. Other questions? I can't see everybody's screen, so if you're raising your hand, okay, there's other people, but they seem to be off camera, which is fine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed. I'm going to share this great kind of like 10 tips for everybody to kind of look for a good marker. So I'm going to go ahead and find that. Where is it? There we go. Share. All right. So this is from Newport. Again, a competitor of Embark. And I'm doing quotations because Laurel's a great friend of mine. She happens to be the local representative for this company. They do really great work here. And I truthfully don't, I see them more as a collaborator rather than a competitor. But for sure, let's see. I wanted to kind of go over these things really quickly, and I'm willing to put this link in the chat as well because it's something that I think is just so important. So, without further ado, top 10 indicators of a safe, quality, high quality treatment. This is what you want to look for as a family member. You know, getting ready to send your teen to a higher level of care, and I'm talking about residential. I'm also talking about PHP as well. But in this particular case, I think this is focused on residential for 12 to 17-year-olds. Also just treatment in general. And this is the things that you want to look for. So the first thing is accreditation. Very, very important. You're looking for things like Joint Commission accreditation, for example, another organization called CARF, as well as another marker. You want to be able to, we want regulating bodies coming in regularly, evaluating these programs, holding them accountable, making sure that they have everything that's in place in order to run a program. It's a huge ordeal. It's a huge operation to do that. It's not easy to keep on track of these things. And if those things are not in place, well, then how do you really know you're sending your teen or your young adult to a place that is safe? Accreditation is one way. So it says here, you know, like they mentioned the Joint Commission, you know, they evaluate hospitals as well. You know, the state, California has their own regulating body called CCL, also known as Community Care Licensing, another regulating body. Sometimes the Medi-Cal programs as well have their own regulations too. So Medi-Cal can come out. For example, when I ran my own residential in San Mateo County, the county would come out too and evaluate us and kind of give us a list of things that we needed to improve upon. They would look at our documentation. They would look at our staffing. They would look at how we would store our medications as well. Are we teaching people how to take their medications? It's so important that people learn what they're putting in their body when it comes to those type of things. You want to be able to understand that. So it shouldn't just be, you know, Nurse Ratched giving people medications. It should be they're understanding what's on the script. This is how many times a day I'm taking it. This is why I'm taking it. How is the staff providing education around these things? How is the client able to advocate for themselves when they're having side effects? You know, what's working, what's not working. I'm feeling a bit too groggy. Should I take water with this? Or, you know, should I drink more water? You know, let's take a look at your diet. Are there's things that are like medications that are contradicting each other possibly as well? All those things are important. So accreditation helps with that. Affiliation. Oh, and look what it says right here. It says something about NAMI. So if they're associated with NAMI in some way, that is a great marker of quality because you want to be able to align with respected organizations. So, you know, another one would be like National Eating Disorders Association. You know, there's other organizations as well. There's the California Consortium of I think it's like drug counselors as well, alcohol and drug counselors, another organization. If you have if like a substance abuse program is attached to that, really high marker quality. So where is the organization aligned? Are they with these like nonprofits, these organizations doing work to kind of break down stigma, to kind of like take back, you know, allow people to have agency and power over the way that they're being treated with mental illness, eating disorder, substance abuse. So the affiliations are another great thing. Another thing is insurance partnerships. So I can proudly say that Newport and Embark are both in network with insurances. You know, so I think Newport is in network with more. Embark has a little bit less, but we're still a network. We work very well with PPO insurances. And I say all that because it can help cover the cost, right? It's just not cash pay. You're not just throwing money at it, like it's kind of regulated insurance as well. They come in and they do utilization reviews, which means that they're evaluating clinically if this person in whatever program, a young adult or adolescent, if there's a need. Insurances, we all have our ideas of what that is, and sometimes they're more of a barrier than helpful, of course. And I want to recognize that. But they don't want to pay for anything that they don't want to. So built in within that, often families and individuals are protected because insurance, if they clinically don't think that it's going to work, they're going to be like, no, this person needs to step down to a lower level of care from residential. So that's another kind of marker of quality. Another thing is evidence-based clinical models. And so what I mean by that is like if they're using in groups or within like their therapy modalities, things like DBT, which means dialectical behavioral therapy. Are they using cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT? Are they using IFS, which means internal family systems? All these things are evidence-based practices, meaning that there's huge amounts of research, empirical data about the efficacy of these type of treatments. We also want to do ecotherapy and things that are more fun, art expression, and sometimes they have equine therapy, which I think does have some empirical data. But a lot of these programs get kind of creative and kind of do things that are a little bit more activity based. But you want to have evidence-based practices because those are markers of trained clinicians, people who went to school and have master's programs and that are like certifiable professionals in these programs. So I think that's really, really important things to have. And certainly Embark has that, Newport has that, Evolve has that, A Mission for Michael has those things. Once again, these are my competitive collaborators that I'm mentioning as well. And then the other thing is outcomes. How are these programs gathering feedback from families and individuals, the people that they serve? Are they using session rating scales and outcome rating scales? Are they using things like feedback informed treatment? And all of these things are ways for them on a regular, mostly weekly basis. Sometimes it's by session, which can get, really kind of, it can be a lot. There's a lot of, for the client, I mean, for the consumer, for the person being served, because it's kind of, you get fatigued by all these surveys. So I think everybody tries to find the happy medium between, that we're really kind of collecting the data that we need. And also this, and we're also kind of understanding the therapeutic alliance. That's really, really important. How are the teams addressing a therapeutic alliance? This means what's working for me and what is not working. You cannot cookie cutter treatment. There needs to be a master treatment plan, a treatment plan that's built from the very beginning that evolves with the evolution of the client. This thing should be changed constantly. And it should be changed in a way with goals that are attainable and that are measurable. So all of those things are important. And a lot of the companies like Embark, Newport, and all the other ones that I've mentioned put out outcome research reports, meaning you can look us up like on our websites. And I have information about that as well, about Embark. And you can take a look at the statistics. Who have we helped? How have we, show me the data in terms of where somebody's gotten better, because after all, families are either spending money or, sometimes they're getting into debt as well, which, I want to have families avoid, by the way, but they are entrusting the care of their child or their loved one into care, and they're spending money sometimes as well out of their own pocket. And we want to make sure that there's data showing that there's actually things being done, that we're doing work. So this is a way to show your work, like they say in algebra class, show your work, show what you did. And this is a way to kind of do that. And then 6, experienced, highly trained staff. I already alluded to that. So Newport does that. Often it's like, they hold advanced degrees, essentially masters, doctorates, medical doctors as well, if they're psychiatrists. Most of the time, when you walk into a provider's office, if any of you have done that before, they have their certificates proudly to say, well, why? Well, they want to be reputable. They want to know that they're attached to some organization that's provided training for them, and that they've dedicated to their life in some way to be a quote unquote expert. And I say quote unquote because, for me, I always think it's the consumer, the person that's the expert, but we want to align with other experts to help to define people's journeys in mental health. We want to have people that are like qualified to be able to do that. So experienced, highly trained staff is another marker. And then another one is the community of referring professionals. So whether it be therapists, whether it be educational consultants, whether it be psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, the list goes on and on and on. Other programs, competing programs, like I'm literally showing Newport's thing, which I don't know if Embark would like, but I don't care. This is amazing. I am part of a community. I don't care about corporate competition. I care about corporate collaboration. So if you have that at your disposal as a professional and you're aligning yourself with other quality people, what you're doing is providing from your heart the community a service. And this is what this is about. And if they can refer, and if they're willing to refer outside and really give people what they need, it's another marker of quality. So having a referral network and kind of understanding what people need is incredibly important. The next thing, and I've talked about this a little bit in my presentation here, is family involvement and communication. How often are they communicating with the family? Is it weekly? Is it daily? How often can I talk to my kid? I have a 10-year-old son. And if he had to go to treatment as like a 13, 14-year-old, I would want to talk to him every day. Son, how you doing? How are things? What's going on? And this is just outside of family therapy. Yeah, I'm not even talking about there. I just want to be able to talk to my kid. They're away from home. Treatment is a traumatic experience within itself to have to be in this level of care, to be hospitalized, to have to go to a residential, to do partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient. It's very ironic in that. So if you don't have your family around you and that's not incorporating supports, whatever they may be, not a good marker of a program. So this is, once again, this is outside family therapy. Embark does require our adolescents to get family therapy, and we let people know up front. This isn't soccer practice. You can't just drop your kid off at our PHP and just like go away. No, you're going to be involved. This is how your child's going to heal, So we really stress that, and those, the other programs I mentioned do the same thing. And a residential, you want to be able to communicate. You want to be able to have the therapist's phone number, their email. You want to be able to talk about this stuff. You want to know what's going on with your kid, for better or worse, right? Like that would be the way to go. And then another thing is alumni testimonials. So a lot of times, there's this video of this young man, which I'm not going to necessarily play, but you want to be able to like look at online, what are people saying online about these programs? Do they have videos like this where people are talking about their experiences? Do they have an alumni network? Where people that have gone through the program could do groups. A lot of the substance abuse programs have that, the mental health programs. How can they be connected in that way? So that's another marker of quality there. And then lastly is thought leadership. So that means that this is kind of being on the cutting edge of things that are coming out for behavioral health. This is kind of incorporating and collaborating with other organizations and putting on trainings for clinicians or providers, being able to kind of host things like parent support groups, like tonight. You know, a lot of organizations do support groups that are like free to kind of like to talk about their services, but to also to talk about what to expect and, you know, how to kind of navigate treatment. And this is all to kind of decrease stigma, as you know, as we're becoming more modern, and mental health and behavioral health is being more talked about, like in the public at large or in the media. You know, like we want to put that, you know, very forward facing, and being able to talk about those things, because it allows for things like doing more research. You know, universities are interested in that, hospitals, academics. How do we continue to kind of forward the field of behavioral health to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the people that we serve? So those are all things that are markers of great programs, and to kind of avoid these kind of problematic facilities around the country or even locally here in California, or what have you. So you want to look for those things. And I want to say one more thing too, is that, you know, if you are considering treatment for a loved one, or you know, maybe you're a professional and you want to refer, being able to tour facilities is another important thing. You want to see the facility, you want to see what they're doing, you want to see, you want to meet the clinicians, feel the vibe, if you will. Are these people aligned by their heart? So I would say 11. I didn't see that in there, but being able to kind of show off the physical space is incredibly important as well. So I'm going to stop sharing this for a second and kind of field any questions, and I'm happy to elaborate a bit more about what I just talked about. Is there anything anybody else wants to know, want to talk about? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and continue here then, and I'm going to go ahead and share a bit about Embark here, a bit more. And I'm going to kind of go quickly through these slides. I may skip over some of them, but I kind of want to just kind of talk generally about Embark and what we do and how we help people. So,
Anthony,
yes,
Ariel posted something on the chat.
yeah,
And she said, not trying to take any business from Embark, LOL, but my friend's granddaughter did a residential program with Newport Academy 3.5 years ago, just for a short stint due insurance issues, and then went to a residential program in remote Montana for over a year, and the family says that Newport is the only good program they've experienced so far. They wish she could have been there now.
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, these programs, it's hard because some of them are you know, reputable and some of them not. And Newport is absolutely one of those that have done well to provide quality of care. So I'm in agreement, you know, like that doesn't bother me at all. And I think that we can share and really kind of talk about those success stories, because I don't see it as just in a Newport win. I see it as a behavioral health field win, meaning there was good people there who did what they had to do, and they were successful in helping this particular individual, whether it be Embark, you know, a Newport, whoever, don't matter. I mean, it's just as long as people are getting what they need. Once again, coming from the standpoint that it's a human right to be able to
It's a good
heal.
model to follow. I mean, you found a great model, right, in the Newport. So
Absolutely. So that's great to hear that person was helped in that way, or, you know, found that Newport was great. And hopefully they're doing okay these days. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and share this here. Sorry, I'm trying to find, oh, there we go. All right, let me go ahead and get into the presentation. Everybody can see that okay? Cool. So this is Embark. That's one of our outpatients. I'm not sure where. We have, I don't know, upwards of 75 outpatients nationally, all over the country. So this is, don't know exactly where this is, but looks pretty nice and clean. So, just to kind of provide some background about what we do. We work with preteens, teens, young adults struggling with anxiety, depression, and other mental health and substance abuse issues. We offer a robust continuum of care. So this includes those outpatients, intensive outpatients, virtual outpatients, residential treatment, wilderness. By the way, that's completely falling out of fashion. We have one remaining wilderness program left, which I think is kind of a response to kind of all the kind of the things happening on a wide scale in our nation with those type of programs. So that's falling out of fashion. I imagine that remaining program will probably either close at some time or they'll do something else with it, because honestly, it's kind of an interest. It's kind of problematic in that model of care. I'm not a big fan of it, but we have one. So, and then in addition to that, we have a therapeutic boarding school and transitional living options as well, which we don't have locally, unfortunately, in Northern California. So we're headquartered in Arizona. Our first program was opened in 1995. At the point when this was made, this presentation, there was 36 program. That number has since doubled. I mentioned somewhere around 75. We're kind of at right now. So located in a number of states. I think it's more than 16, of course, and we have a lot of employees. So we're a behemoth, but that doesn't mean, and I'll get into this more, that at our clinics and at our residentials that we're not allowed to kind of work with the populations we serve specifically, and that the clinicians aren't able to be creative and innovative in the way that they're providing treatment and really addressing actually what's needed, versus some like cookie cutter type of thing that we're all kind of forced to do. Sure, Embark has its structure, and I'll kind of go over some of the things, frameworks that they work from here, which I think that are great. But also too, there's a lot of agency for our clinicians to kind of address the issues that our clients have. So again, national referral partner network built on years of consistent top quality care and treatment and services. The care is delivered by a multidisciplinary teams, 25-year history. We're one of the most experienced young adult teen organizations in the country. Once again, robust continuum of care, meaning we have a bunch of different types of services for people. And then investing a significant amount of the capital into the national footprint of accessible behavioral health programs. And then they talk about the treatment framework, which we'll go into in a minute. So more about the robust continuum of care. Here's more about the continuum of care, kind of broken down from the highest up here. This, treatment while living in a program facility is in the orange, and then treatment while living at home. And I really, really, really like the treatment while living at home, because I think that it provides a nice reprieve from maybe school, but also too, it's the nice happy medium to not have to escape elsewhere. Are these other higher levels of care needed? Of course. Sometimes people need that. But I really, really, really like the ones in the blue, because I think that that's where great work is done. You could still live at home. You're kind of working things out as you go. And I really hope that we lean into more outpatient type of facilities versus inpatient. Not to say inpatients in residentials aren't needed, but again, I really think I like the way that that's set up. So moving forward, and then there we go. Here are some accreditations that we have. Again, being a marker of the things, of quality program. We have the Joint Commission here. We have the NCA, CASI, all of these other accredited as well. And then we have the outdoor behavioral health care. I think that's for the wilderness programs. That's great. I think that's good. Once again, personally not a big fan of wilderness, but once again, sometimes that might be needed as well.
Right.
And then again, we have in 2019, apparently we were in the top 50 for healthcare companies. So this is a bit dated, this presentation, but I think a lot of it still applies in terms of what we're doing. To even mention in 2023, we won full accreditation by the Joint Commission. So we're doing good work, in terms of accreditation and showing that we're a good program. And then here's some of our locations. The one of interest here is this one in San Martin, which is local to everyone here in the area. That's of course, in Santa Clara County, just before Gilroy, I think. Yeah, just before Gilroy. And if you can look at it, it's beautiful. There's a pool there. It's very rural. It has a nice feeling there. It's a really nice place to heal. So that's kind of like a look at kind of our local program. And then you can see some other ones around the country as well. And they're all kind of stylized a little bit different, kind of based on the location. So they all have their own character and feel to them. So I'm going to stop here for a minute. This is an incredibly effective framework that we use. And it's from a developmental lens, meaning like we really kind of take a look at not necessarily the chronological age of the adolescent or the young adult. It's really where they are developmentally. You can have a 17-year-old that that's kind of developmentally more like an 11-year-old. You can have a 12-year-old that might be more mature and kind of acts, through trauma. They may act a little bit older, like an adult, because they're kind of forced to do those things. So we're really kind of looking through this framework here on, what people are going through, and through experiential, systematic, and outcomes-driven types of things, we're able to take a look at the therapeutic relationship. So I'm going to back up a bit and kind of go over this framework called CASA, which, stands for 4 different things. And if you're familiar with the Spanish language, the word casa means home, which I think is incredibly important for what I'm going to go into, because casa means home. And I feel like these four things we're going to go over really takes a look at building from within the home. So the first one is commitment. That's what the C stands for. So if you could see the spiral over here, where it's caregiver and child, we have them starting at the beginning of their journey. And the first thing that we need people to do is to commit to the idea that people are, that the adolescent's going to treatment, and that the parents are dedicated to the treatment process, and the therapeutic required is to restore the self-worth and the trust in the child, right? So if the parents are able to commit and to be able to kind of like walk forward there, they can, it's going to start this journey toward co-regulation, something I kind of already talked about already. So with that, the next stage being an acceptance. So this is accepting the teenager, the young adult, with their developmental disruption. They often fear trusting caregivers. So maybe they've had things taken away, or maybe there's been inconsistency with parenting as well. Maybe there's anxiety or maladaptive behaviors to cope. So we want to rebuild that, and accepting those things is a large part of treatment. We have to recognize, and it's kind of the old dialectic. I need to accept the fact that who I am and where I am as a family or individual. And I also need to accept the fact that I need to change. So those two things are detrimentally opposed, but actually it's more like a conversation. And if you can understand those two dialectics, well, then that's kind of the first step often to healing. And when Marsha Linehan, the creator of DBT, came up with that, that's the main idea. Accept the fact that I need to change, and accept the fact of who I am, and accept the fact that I need to change. Two opposite ideas coming together, moving forward. The idea of recovery, the idea of healing, and all of those things. And this idea of acceptance is kind of aligns with that philosophy. And then we're getting into security. Security is produced when caregivers are committed to doing what's developmentally best, and they accept the adolescent or the child's behavioral, developmental, emotional difficulties, and reliably provide the emotional, physical, and relational needs of the child. Meaning it's that they're responding in a way that's appropriate, and they're understanding where their child is. They're accepting the fact that these things are coming out of a need. There's something missing there, and they're behaving in a way to get a need met. A need met. So yeah, that's part of it. And then the last one is attunement. So we're here, and the last part of the thing, the spiral, if you will. And that requires accurate responsiveness from the caregiver to see beyond the immediacy of the behaviors and embrace the acceptance and underlying distress, creating dysfunctional behaviors. So that means responding appropriately. So, those parent coaches, those therapists, those people providing skills are so, so important, because I think that a lot of times families, or, parents, they just don't know how to respond to certain things that their children are happening. And sometimes they come from a good intentions, but maybe they don't have the skills, or they have their own behavioral health issues going on. And often it results in a misalignment, right? Like they might be trying to help them, but often it just misses, for whatever reason. So it's kind of really understanding and tuning together what that looks like. So if you're able to do those things, and this isn't a linear process, by the way, it very much follows the cycles of change, if you're familiar with that, which means that people kind of cycle through where they are with change, and families and adolescents and young adults are no different. So you can kind of go back and revisit these things during the journey, right? And then if you can see, there's a divergent arrow here. So if you have to start over at acceptance, well, then you have to start over in acceptance. But the idea is through more practice, through more being present and really kind to being there, for your loved one, eventually you'll get to co-regulation. And with that, you could create joy. And that's what we want for families. That idea of creating joy and having the experience of, why people want to create a family in the first place, creating memories and doing all those things. And the great thing about going to treatment, although, I've already mentioned it as a traumatic experience, is that it kind of gives everybody a break from each other in a lot of ways, right? So if you're in a residential and things are kind of tough, and there's just been a lot of conflict, and the dynamics are off, or what have you, it's an opportunity for people to take a break from each other, and even in PHP as well. And everybody can kind of take a break and kind of be able to get the reserves up and come to a more of an understanding, reflect about what's going on, and be able to kind of maybe pay attention, because sometimes with these families, there's multiple siblings, right? And maybe there's one sibling or one child that's creating, has behavioral health issues and is kind of creating turmoil. Well, it could be a time to focus on the other siblings who haven't had that attention from the parents because they're focusing on this other child. So it's the ability to kind of like take a step back and kind of get a breath, and leave it to the professionals, if you will, to kind of help this family heal and provide guidance on what to do next. But not, of course, without the family contributing to what that looks like in general. So that's our CASA model framework that all of our services are kind of built off of. They really heavily hammer this in, for all the employees when they first come to Embark. It's something that we constantly are being trained on. We have somebody who kind of travels around the country and meets with providers, and we host dinners, and they talk about this as kind of a way to kind of to distinguish Embark as a top behavioral health company. But really, I just think it's a good way to kind of think about treatment in general, and the type of things that you should be looking for when, if considering getting your loved one into treatment, whatever that might look like. So, and then to kind of go more into our treatment approach, once again, I talked about the developmental lens, it talks about growth through the lifespan and how interpersonal relations are essential for a healthy physical and emotional relational development. We want to make sure that we're promoting that, and we're, through our family therapy, through our individual work, it's very relational in that way. I talked about CASA already. And then again, experiential. We utilize experiential methods to create and treat clients as well as manage employees. So that means that we do things like we have a group, like for example, a multifamily group for our IOP program for our adolescents, where families get together as a group, parents and the adolescents together, and do activities together. We do that like once or twice a month. I think it's twice a month. And they do it in the evening, and essentially family, as I said, they come together and they do some type of activity together. And it allows them to practice doing things together as a unit. And at the same time, we're able to kind of assess dynamics even further and provide coaching in the moment. So I think that's really great that we offer that. And then it's also a systematic approach that we use. This is in therapy and academics and management. We kind of take a look at, what's the school's role in treatment as well? How are things, going at school, or, just kind of in the community in general? Maybe it's, like extracurricular activities, whether it be sports, what have you. How does that factor in to treatment? And then the last thing is outcomes. There is, collecting measurables for each year and being able to show that off to the public at large. And then this all has to kind of contribute to the therapeutic relationship as well. So those are the frameworks that we work from. Any questions about all these things that I just went over?
Anthony, I do see a comment in the chat from
Yeah.
Jill. You mentioned, excuse my pronunciation, is it equine therapy?
Yeah, equine therapy, which means equine therapy, and that is like with horses typically.
Right. And she
Yeah.
did say, I can say that it's been very helpful for my teen with anxiety, and it's his favorite therapy. And I have seen positive studies on the benefits of it, but I don't have access to the article right now. Provider, Equine Healing, Collaborative, and Felton and Salinas.
It really is a wonderful service, and I think that a wonderful therapy model. Horses are amazing animals. I can think of a case, or not a case, but of an example of that. This is just a like an anecdote, if you will. But there are, of course, empirical data about horses and their role to healing people. But one time I took my son, and he was an infant, and I was going for a hike. It was near a cliffside, and there happened to be a horse ranch like in the area, or what have you. And my son's really little, and the horse, and I guess like stopped in front of us and like was like looking at us, and I can just see the horse was like adoring us, because I guess the horse was able to sense like the love between myself and my son, and just being able to kind of like experience that. And then the writer who owned the horse or whatever stopped and just commented like, wow, like this is amazing. Like she doesn't really do that ever. I mean, it's good to see. So I share that to say that horse sense is real. Like it's totally a real thing. They're very healing creatures. And I think that programs that have that, you want to make sure, and this is just something that I've learned, and being working in the treatment space, is that you want to make sure that they're actually doing equine therapy. Because sometimes, I mean, being able to groom a horse and run, pet it is great, but are they actually riding it? Really, is the marketing of that program really, what are they doing? I think if you're considering looking at that, you want to know the specifics of it, because sometimes programs say that they do it, but really the young adults or the adolescents are just running a comb through the horse's a horse's mane, which is nice. But that's not equine therapy necessarily. You know, it's like horse equine experience, right? So you want to make sure that when programs are advertising a certain thing, ask about what does that actually look like. My son or daughter, or whatever, maybe they identify as non-binary or transgender or what have you, whatever they whatever they identify with, you want to make sure that they're getting what they want, because you don't want them to show up and for them to be disappointed. So ask questions about those type of things. That kind of let me on that tangent, but I think it's really important. But at San Martin, we did have an equine therapy program, but we the people that ran it, we ended up parting ways. It ended up not working out. They wanted, I think, for whatever reason. But right now at San Martin, we're doing canine work with clients. So, if it's not dogs, maybe it's horses or, other goats. They people do like goat yoga. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that before, which is so great. So, we work with this organization called Canine for Kids, where the kids there in our San Martin residential get an opportunity to learn everything about dogs, whether it be grooming and how to train them, like, to do like an obstacles course, like, if like they do in the dog shows or what have you.
Right.
So by the time after 5 or 6 weeks, they present them with their certificate, which can have a vocational aspect to it, as where they can show this to like a Petco or a pet grooming place, and maybe that kind of gives them a skill to work part-time at one of these like places. So I wanted to mention that as well. I think incorporating animal therapy, dogs, horses, goats, farm animals, what have you, are great ways for people to heal. So I really love that comment, and what that person said about equine therapy. Other questions?
We do have a question in the chat. How are transgender parents accommodated in residential single rooms?
Patients, I think.
Patients, sorry, not parents. Patients.
Yeah. So it's based on preference, right? Like, so if somebody identifies as female, well, then we want to make sure that we're getting them into a female room. We also want to check in with, the other person to make sure that they're comfortable. We don't have right now any single rooms at the moment. So it's just kind of based on, preference. We really try to kind of identify what that like looks like. We really kind of put it out there that we definitely do work with those type of individuals. And sometimes, parents don't like that. I'm going to be really honest. Some people are not aligned with that thing, and that's okay. And it's kind of identifying what people want and where they want their child to go. I mean, it's hard because, it's the truth of the matter is not everybody agrees with that. So it's based on preference for Embark. Sometimes there are, some programs do have single rooms for that as well. It just so happens that we don't, but because there's a lot of people that happen to be a part of that population who we serve, either non-binary or transgender, it often works out because we can often pair two clients together that happen to be of that population, and they always get it to work, for whatever reason. So that's how that's kind of addressed, for us. And it's a topic of interest. It's sometimes it can be controversial for some people, but we just try to meet people where they're at and kind of just be upfront what that looks like and educate them about, what we do. And because not everybody is on board with that, and that's okay. I mean, we just want people to find what works for them. So other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a question. You might have mentioned this, but what about meds? Years ago, back anciently, back in the 90s, my son, who was a teenager at the time, we had to send him to one of these, outdoor schools that were all the rage, just like Paris Hilton at the time. And unfortunately, there weren't any really good schools or facilities like Embark around at the time, and we didn't know a lot of information. But at any rate, my son did benefit from his exposure, and he really did like the little bit of the wilderness program he had. But the school that he went to, they did not believe in medication. So they weren't dispensing meds or being responsible for any medications. What about Embark?
Well, it's by client, it's by individual. I mean, definitely we're checking, especially if it's a minor, we're checking in with the parents first of all, and we're seeing like what they want to do. And often we're able to kind of work with them and kind of show them like, hey, um, they're really struggling, like maybe this is a conversation, and we have like conversations and kind of show them what things look like, and what it might be. We do like a risk analysis, if you will, too, like talk about side effects, educate them. We do have psychiatrists on staff at all our levels of care. Some of them are telehealth, some of them in person, some of them are nurse practitioners, but they're able to educate. I think that's first and foremost the most important thing. How do you talk about this, and how do you kind of respectfully, let the parents know, like, okay, we tried this, and this didn't work. And matter of fact, maybe somebody got hospitalized because they just simply don't have what they need therapeutically to move forward. And if you don't have that, well, then you're not learning any skills, right? Because I'm just going to use schizophrenia because this is a clear-cut example.
Okay.
You're hearing voices. You're not able to interact with people. You're thinking. There's some paranoid ideation around things that are happening, whether it be auditory or visual or whatever. And if you don't have those things in place, well, you're not going to be able to function. And so we have those conversations, and we really kind of like, okay, well, that didn't work. Like, you got hospitalized. So we don't necessarily, that is a kind of extreme like clear-cut example. And Embark, we tend to work more like with mood, personality disorder, like anger and all those, depression, not necessarily schizophrenia. But I like to use that as an example because it's like very visceral in terms of me demonstrating what that might look like for somebody.
Right.
But and once again, education is the important thing. We don't necessarily say we don't do meds at all, and we just try to give everybody every med that there is either. But it's very appropriate and tailored to the person in front of us and the preferences of the adolescent, young adult, or the and the family, especially if they're minor, especially if they're adolescent.
Yeah. Thank you. And I see somebody's asking about patients that are struggling with psychosis. Are they accepted into the Embark program?
So again, that level of acuity is a bit that it's for Embark. We tend to not work with that. I do know of programs that do. A mission for Michael, for example, which happens to be in Southern California. It's really unfortunate, everybody, but in Northern California for residential treatment, it's not as we don't have as many as Southern California. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Most of the high acuity treatment facilities are in Southern California. Florida, Tennessee is another place that I can think of as well for adolescents and young adults. So my good friend Joey Lopez, he's like, we're buddies. He's with a mission for Michael, and they can handle that. They have 6-bed houses that are dedicated to that type of diagnosis. So they do a little bit things kind of based on like need. They have all these houses in Orange County that they're able to kind of by level of acuity kind of place people there appropriately.
Okay.
But there's not much here in Northern California for that level of care, which I think is a crime, essentially, because I'm a Northern California guy, and I wish that we can kind of keep people here. But the truth of the matter is, higher acuity with complex medical issues, psychiatric issues, typically kind of go out of the area. Yes, Ariel.
Yes, okay. So how about if you have a a client who's interested, who has been given a diagnosis of a serious mental illness, you know, kind of recently or whatever, has that diagnosis, but has come out of the psychosis. So they've been treated, you know, maybe they're coming out of a hospitalization.
Yeah.
Do you accept those patients?
Well, it
Or-
just kind of depends on, you know, where they are. And we can, I mean, we have worked with a little bit of psychiatric symptoms and it, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, you know, typically those things for adolescents in particular aren't typically diagnosed until the early 20s anyways. Like, so, but, you know, just to say, like, it's all case by case. You know, if somebody is kind of like well medicated and maybe they're kind of their chief thing is more like depression, anxiety, or what have you, and it's kind of regulated with the medications, we'll take a look at it. I mean, we're always willing to kind of take a look at cases and evaluate them like clinically to see if it will work. And we're not afraid to say like this is something that we can't handle because we don't want to put somebody in a position where we're not able to professionally help with that. So
Okay, so okay, I'm just trying to, again, I co-facilitate a couple different groups, one of them being the transitional age youth group. And of course, the people coming to our support groups many times are in crisis.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to get a really clear picture of when this might be, you know, a time to not to refer, but to suggest looking into you guys. And I'm getting a little bit of it's a little bit of a hard time, but figuring that out. And then addition with the overlay of the 18 to 28-year-olds. Like, for example, in the San Martin facility, do they take people there past 18 or no?
no, it's only for 12 to
Okay.
17. So that's like our
I
only
see.
resident. But we do have
Okay.
locations in Oregon and in Southern California. And again, it's Northern California has a problem. We have an absence of adult residential mental health facilities that can handle higher acuity symptoms.
Okay.
And
Okay. So you're not doing that. You're okay. Okay. I'm starting to get a picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
No problem. Other questions?
We are at our 10-minute mark, you guys. It's so just letting you all know.
Great. Was there any other questions for me? I'm having trouble seeing the chat, Cece. So if there's any.
There's no more questions so far.
Well, what I would like to do here, because I really don't have more, there's more on the slides here, but I honestly, it's just kind of like really promoting Embark more and more and more. What I really wanted to do is provide some tools and some type of guidance around treatment in general, what to look for, in terms of that, like what are some of the things that programs like mine look at? Like Newport kind of does their own version of this. Evolve does a Mission for Michael. There's another program called Lightfully. I forgot them. I didn't say their name, but they work with adolescents as well. And all of us are kind of doing our own thing. And it's kind of to distinguish each other. But in reality, there's a lot of overlap. And it's just kind of like what works best for you. So if you have somebody, if you yourself are shopping or looking, I can be a great resource in kind of helping you identify what you need, what you're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to put my information in the chat. And if there's any questions, you'll have my email, you'll have my phone number. And I'm here to be a conduit to care and to kind of talk about those things. Lucinda, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, because that's exactly what I was gonna say, is that I feel like you have got such a knowledge of all that's available for this particular age group, which is so challenging or has been challenging for us in NAMI and our support groups and in all of the experience that I've had, is to find, this is a hard age group to find help for and to find treatment facilities for, especially residential, et cetera.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I really, and I was going to say, I hope you can be a resource for us because now I know who to get in touch with when people have questions about this very group and about what's out there, because it seems like you really have a handle on it. And that is such a needed thing for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. And for me, when I'm on the phone, I'm talking to families, I'm thinking about this woman right here who's holding me in this picture, my
Oh,
mom. I
yeah.
really am. Because again, I understand what it's like being a family member and having somebody suffering from mental illness, and that how through treatment you can transcend that. You can come to a point and you can be a part of helping your loved one having a quality of life that's meaningful. My mom has that now. She's doing well, you
Okay.
know,
Glad to hear it.
and she's a grandmother, right? Like
Woohoo.
she does her grandma thing. I send my kids over there and everything like that. But for me, that's who I'm thinking about. I'm really thinking about the other
Yeah.
human being on the other side. And for me, it's really about how, getting people connected to care. And it doesn't matter. If I don't know it, somebody
Yeah.
I know does, because
Yeah.
I've spent the last year touring, meeting with people, understanding what's out there at all levels of care,
Yeah.
nationally, locally, and everything. So I would be proud to be a resource for people.
Thank you so much. We
Yeah.
really need resources. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Is
you.
there any questions for Anthony before we adjourn our community resource night? This was really, really helpful, Anthony.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I do have a question. You mentioned Medicare, so Embark deals with Medicare, and then you mentioned private pay. Um, so do they deal with a lot of insurances, would you
Oh,
say, or?
we do. I mean, to be specific, we don't deal with Medicare. What I meant by that, if somebody came to me looking for Medicare treatment, I would be able to find that for them. It would not be
Oh,
Embark necessarily, but if
okay,
somebody was like, Anthony, help me find Medicare for my
okay,
Medicare behavioral health for my 65-year-old father, whatever. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. So it's not necessarily that's Embark. I was just kind of alluding to the fact that it could be low, they could be low income, they can have all the money in the world. It doesn't matter to me. I will help them find treatment. That was kind of what I was trying to say.
nice, thank you.
Cameron, did you raise your hand, or what did
Yeah,
you?
I did. I was gonna ask, in these facilities, do you do any kind of occupational therapy and uh, teaching independent living skills?
We do, and we don't do occupational therapy per se at Embark, but we do independent living skills, especially for the young adults. A lot of the times they're emerging adults, which means is that they've either tried to live on their own or are at home already, living at home with their parents, and often that's often the function of modern times, right? Like, um, and another thing is like a lot of the young adults, because of the disruption of COVID and being having to isolate at home, often were greatly affected, impacted by that experience. So a lot of our young adults, they don't have basic skills. Some of them don't know how to cook for themselves. Some of them don't know how to go. They don't understand their insurance, their medical insurance, which, to be honest, I sometimes I don't understand my own insurance. However, because of their symptoms, of course, it even makes it harder for them, right? So we provide in our young adult program and a bit in our adolescents as well, real practical skills and address anxiety and depression or any other like behavioral health symptoms related to being able to kind of do some of these tasks. So we don't, so we're it's very heavily focused on that, to the point where the participants in the program are able to kind of pick and choose what they want to talk about topically from group to group, for in this independent living skills group, because they also do your evidence-based practices groups and everything like that. And I think that they were able to, so we're able to kind of address whatever they want to talk about, what's going on. Like, for example, this is a great example of this. 7-Eleven is 7-Eleven, which is July 11th. is National Slurpee Day. So 7-Eleven gives out free Slurpees. Our group took a field trip over there, but it wasn't just to get a free Slurpee. It was actually one of the hottest days of the summer that day. I don't know if you guys remember how hot it was on July 11th. But they prepared a couple days before and kind of came up with a plan, and everybody was able to figure out what they needed for this 25-minute walk or whatever it was in the heat to figure it out. So, do I need a hat? Do I need sunscreen? Do I need water? Like, do I need to listen to my body or whatever? So this is just like an example of some of the things that we do in order to kind of prepare people to be an adult. And it can be things like that. We've even made like spaghetti or pasta from scratch within our clinic on a burner, where we kind of like rolled it out and done stuff like that. So, to kind of answer your question, Cameron, in particular in the young adult program, we really review those things, because you could talk about DBT, CBT, and talk about all these kind of like things all you want. But when it comes down to it, how, where the rubber meets the road is, how do I have practical, concrete skills to take care of myself and address my depression, my anxiety, my other issues that I'm having as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Is there any last questions before? Okay, well, I want to thank Anthony so much. Thank you. This was very informative. Thank you all for coming. I will stop the recording now.